On a bright, sunny morning, in a cozy little house filled with toys and laughter, a tiny puppy woke up from a long, wonderful nap. He stretched his front paws way out, then his back paws, and let out a giant, house-shaking yawn. Ah, what a great sleep. The little puppy, whose name was Pipsqueak, felt so refreshed and ready for a day of fun. He trotted out of his comfy dog bed, his tail wagging like a helicopter blade, ready to find his best friend, a little girl named Lily. He found Lily in the living room, carefully building a tower of colorful blocks. It was already taller than Pipsqueak. He watched her for a moment, impressed by her steady hands. But all that napping had made him feel just a little bit sleepy again. He sat down, opened his mouth as wide as it could go, and let out another enormous yawn. It was so big, his little ears flopped forward. Lily, concentrating hard on placing a tricky block, happened to glance over at just that moment. She saw Pipsqueak's huge yawn, and suddenly, she felt a yawn coming on too. She tried to hold it back, but it was no use. A big, wide yawn escaped, and her block tower wobbled. Pipsqueak's ears perked up. He tilted his head. A funny idea started to form in his puppy brain. A thought bubble appeared above his head, showing a picture of Lily yawning, and then another picture of everyone in the world yawning, all at once. He giggled to himself. This was going to be fun. His first target was Dad, who was in the kitchen reading the newspaper and sipping his coffee. Pipsqueak tiptoed in, his little paws making no sound on the floor. He sat right in front of Dad and stared. Dad didn't notice at first, so Pipsqueak took a deep breath and let out the most dramatic, over-the-top, super stretchy yawn he could manage. He even added a little squeak at the end for extra effect. Dad looked up from his paper, straight into Pipsqueak's wide-open mouth. And just like that, it happened. Dad's eyes started to water, his shoulders drooped, and a massive yawn took over. It was a classic Dad yawn, loud and long. The newspaper drooped in his hands. Pipsqueak's tail thumped on the floor. Success. The thought bubble above his head now showed Dad with a giant, cartoonish yawn. One down. More to go. He scampered off to find his next unsuspecting victim. Next, Pipsqueak found Mom in the garden, watering her beautiful flowers. This would be a challenge. She was humming a happy tune and seemed very awake. Pipsqueak hid behind a big, leafy plant, peeking through the leaves. He waited for the perfect moment. When Mom turned to water the roses right next to his hiding spot, he jumped out. Surprise! And then he unleashed his secret weapon, the yawn. It was a masterpiece of a yawn, complete with a full body stretch and a little wiggle. Mom gasped in surprise, then she saw Pipsqueak and his silly, yawning face. She chuckled. But it was too late. The yawn was contagious. She tried to cover her mouth, but a big, graceful yawn escaped anyway. She shook her head, laughing. "Oh, you silly puppy," she said, giving him a gentle pat. Pipsqueak wagged his tail triumphantly. In his thought bubble, a cartoon version of Mom was now yawning amongst her flowers. The yawn attack was working perfectly. Feeling bold, Pipsqueak decided to take his mission to the next level. He saw the mail carrier coming up the front path. This was a true test of his yawning power. He sat right by the mail slot in the door, waiting. As the letters started to slide through, Pipsqueak poked his nose out. He looked the mail carrier right in the eye and gave him the biggest yawn of the day. It was epic. It was legendary. The mail carrier, who had been briskly walking, suddenly slowed down. He stopped, leaned against the fence, and let out a yawn so big that his hat almost fell off. He blinked a few times, looking confused, as if he suddenly wanted a nap. Right there on the sidewalk, Pipsqueak let out a happy little arf. He had done it. The thought bubble above his head now showed a whole line of people yawning, starting with the mail carrier and stretching all the way down the street. Pipsqueak trotted back inside, feeling very proud of himself. He had spread yawns all through the house and even out into the neighborhood. He went back to the living room, where Lily was still playing. But now, Dad was snoozing in his chair with the newspaper on his lap. Mom was sitting on the sofa, her eyes looking heavy. Even the family cat, who was usually very dignified, was curled up and yawning widely. Lily looked at Pipsqueak and giggled. "You did this, didn't you?" she whispered. "You're the yawn monster." Pipsqueak just wagged his tail and gave her a happy little lick on the nose. He looked around the sleepy room. His thought bubble showed his whole family, including the cat, all happily napping together. He had planned it as a joke, but he had accidentally created the coziest, quietest afternoon ever. Feeling a bit sleepy himself after all that hard work, Pipsqueak curled up on the soft rug at Lily's feet. He looked at his napping family, all peaceful and quiet. He let out one last, tiny, contented yawn. It wasn't a joke this time. It was just a happy, sleepy sigh. He closed his eyes, and in just a moment, the little puppy who started the big yawn was fast asleep, dreaming of his next funny adventure. Thanks for watching, friends. Don't forget to follow for more puppy jokes.